Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of True Sight, your meme-free destination for Dota 2 insight analysis and news. I already know that you're going to say it.
I'm not actually. This time I'm not
thinking about it.
It's a meme-free zone today.
There we go. Yeah, today, and that's all I ever hope for is that today we will be a meme-free zone.
But tomorrow,
yeah, I mean, obviously anything goes on Thursday. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. If you're tuning in wherever you are on your comfy couches or in your crowded buses, checking us out on a phone, wherever you are, welcome and thank you. Tonight is a very special episode. We're extremely excited because right around the corner is the Manila Major. And of course, the unfortunate consequence of having a major event coming up is everybody is under media lockdown. And of course, there are absolutely no tournaments going on whatsoever. I'm going through withdrawal, people.
Yeah.
Damn it.
It's okay. It's okay. We got you.
We
got
got
some news for you.
We do. We got you covered. So, of course, what we're going to do tonight is a power ranking. That's right. You've heard of them before, and you've seen them on all sorts of websites. We're going to go ahead and break down the top 10 teams headed into the Manila Major. Hopefully help you out with some of your compendium predictions along the way. And we're going to do that joined by Skim and Suntzu later on in the show. And then, of course, after that, we're going to have some Q&A with our two lovely guests. Guys, can you hear us?
Yes.
Excellent.
Hello.
I always know that I can hear you, but I can't think of a more natural transition. And I figured just in case something goes wrong, I just make sure. Suntzu, Skim, guys, how are you doing this evening?
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Just good.
Perfectly good.
Let's hope you're wordier than that when we talk about the teams on our power rankings. So, of course, folks, as you know, the Manila Major is coming up, and there's been a lot of movement within the top 10 ranks of Dota 2, so we're here to break it down for you a little bit. We've gone through the entire painstaking process of talking to our experts. Lee and I have also pitched in, and we've compiled a comprehensive list of the top 10 teams to look out for at the Manila Major, average them out, and come out what can only be described as what is eventually going to happen at the Manila Major. Literally nothing else could possibly happen.
It's going to be
but
these teams.
What we've predicted on this show tonight. I mean, I don't think there's any question of that. Guys, are you ready to take a look at your questionable picks? Because I got some tough questions for you.
I'm ready. I'm so ready for this.
Excellent. All right, guys, let's go ahead and kick it off. Our number 10 team, let's count it straight down to number 1. Our number 10 team, MVP Phoenix. I don't want to show them that, Will. I don't want to show them the whole thing. You spoiled the surprise. MVP Phoenix is our number 10 team, a team that has coming in at the last spot on the leaderboard, and I think that there's some deserved, there's a good reason there. This team has been up and down this past year, trouncing some of the best teams in the world and also falling to some of the less, I don't want to say worse, that sounds derogatory, some of the less best teams in the world, and it's often hard to tell which team is going to show up, but our panel of experts has put them at number 10. Guys, break it down for me. This team looked on top of the world before, and now kicking off our power rankings, we've only got them at number 10.
I'm going to give this to Suntzu because I know he has a few words about MVP. So.
Oh boy, here we go.
Yeah, I'm sort of I've been made out as being this big hater of MVP. I don't hate them. I just don't think that they're top 4 material. They're not really. That's not their true level. They've had some struggles after Shanghai, and in reality, I think that they're basically the second best team from their region that is showing up at Manila. I consider Fnatic a better team. So for me, it was pretty natural to have them like low top 8 or maybe just below. So that's sort of where I see them going. If they get lucky, they can make top 6, but this is more realistic.
Now, of course, what we're talking about is a team that has fluctuated so wildly over the year that they're extremely hard to sort of pin down. Skim, you put them at number 10 on your list. Suntzu, you actually rated them a little bit higher before people call MVP a hater. Tell me, how did MVP sneak into your top 10 for the show tonight?
So generally, I think they're a good team. They're a strong team. I mean, we've seen it at TI, we've seen it at Shanghai, Dota Pit, We Play. They've definitely showed up a lot of times, but at the same time, then there was also Starletter. Their online performances against their regional rivals, Fnatic and TNC, are just horrible. Not even the results, but also just the pure performances. You could argue, yeah, of course, LAN performances should weigh more, but I just feel that MVP is a very momentum-based team, and I think that I kind of doubt that they're going to get another momentum kind of like roll at Manila as they did at Shanghai, because people are much more aware of MVP now than they were before.
Yeah, and that's the big thing that you noticed at Shanghai. Teams really didn't understand what MVP were doing. Even after Shanghai, when they won DOTA Pit, not that actually anyone in attendance actually really cared about the event except MVP. I hate to spoil that for anyone.
Pretty sure Complexity cared about that event as well.
Okay, Complexity might have cared a little bit, but then we have Swindle standing on the panel and saying, I haven't seen MVP pick this thing with IO and Bristle in like months. They played it at Manila. At Shanghai.
They
played it at Shanghai, and you should be doing more research than that if you're going to play a team.
Putting Swindles
it's their
on blast.
their only way that they play Wisp.
Yeah, I've yet to see them pick a Wisp with any other hero. It just seems to favor their run and gun style of Dota, certainly. Now, Lee, talk to me a little bit, because you didn't even put MVP, and I'm not putting you on blast.
I know.
They're a tough team to call. You didn't even put MVP in your top 10. Talk to me a little bit about that decision.
Like everybody says, you don't know which MVP is going to show up, and when we're talking about the top 10 list power ranking, I don't want to put somebody that you don't know if it's going to put up or shut up. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know what they're going to do, and I'm not going to like stake anything on a team who I don't know if they're going to be playing like Chinese RPGs for the last week. Like, I don't know what they're doing, and I don't know what they're going to be doing. I'd rather like stake my claim on somebody I know is working their asses off. Mm-hmm. And I mean, like, come on, it's like Wings. It's like MVP, Wings, Fnatic. It's just like they're good teams.
Yeah.
Like, they could beat pretty much all pub stop teams. But when it comes to teams that actually do this as their living, it's just like, hey, we don't know what we're doing exactly.
Now, I'm so glad you brought up Wings, because they're not in our top 10 power ranking, and they sort of put the hurt on Newbie this morning, which of course is the curse of doing a show like this. You get everything ready, and then a crazy result comes out of left field. But Skim, Johan, we were talking to you guys before the show, and as far as you're concerned, the Wings results don't really mean that much. The Wings results over Newbie don't mean that much when it comes to the top 10 ranking. Skim, break it down for us. Why did you leave Wings off of your list?
I think the argumentation is sort of similar to MVP. If you look at their online performances, their wins against Newbie were incredibly strong, and a lot of people are citing their incredible win rate. Hey, they only lost like 8 games out of like their last 20 games or whatever. But please look at the teams that they've been playing. Goddamn Braveheart, White Fries Gaming. I mean, if they're not beating them, they shouldn't be even considered an international.
They actually. When the Chinese team was playing a bunch of H Cups, Wings had exactly 50% win rate in H Cups, which is like, you should, if you're supposed to be a good team, you should be doing better than that there. Now, of course, they went to ESL 1 Manila, and they won that. Again, I'm not going to say teams didn't care about it, but like, there's let's say some teams might have had some food poisoning, might have been some things going on that, I mean, yeah.
Are you saying that you think Wings has to poison people's foods in order to win? Is that what's happening?
No.
That's a bold claim. I was like, whoa, dude. Meta game over here.
In terms of how they play, basically, they play a sort of similar style to what MVP does, and like they pick these fighting heroes, they pick sustain, they don't really like a lot of big cooldowns, so they fight a lot, and then they have a bit of pushing mixed in there, and they just come at you with more heroes than you're willing to use, and if you don't see that coming, or if your game plan is too greedy and you don't adapt, then they can take games off you. The thing is, like that matched up very well against Newbie, and Newbie have been really stiff at changing their style, because their style works against most teams. But I don't think you can take that as a significant indicator that Wings is going to do a lot of work at Manila. I think I was trying to look for an opening to put them like with a chance to get like 9th through 12th or something like that. But the fact is, every team that's on at least my personal list, like between 9 and 12, they all play a style that I think should match up well against Wings. So
there you go. They certainly an upset-minded team with a good style to disrupt some people, but probably going to have a chance against, or probably going to have a tough time against some stronger opponents. Now, one Chinese team that earned its spot on our list and that is certainly less consistent, and for good reason, with the general on their roster. We're of course talking about number 9, LGD. This team taking arguably one of the best pieces of CDEC's roster after the team sort of slumped after TI, combining it with Zhao Wei, legendary Chinese general, the guy that you could put him on any team, including newbie last season, and somehow they will find their way to the top of the heap. We've got him at number 9. You actually ranked them the highest, Johan, by putting them at number 7. Tell me what you see in LGD that gives you so much confidence in them.
I actually think that saying that they're like about top 8 or something like that, that's not really that bold. I think once they sort of finish their development, they're going to be around top 4. But I think that they aren't quite there yet. The word out of China recently, Molly tweeted about this. I think it was one of the guys from CDCY or something, Inflame maybe, who was saying that LGD are starting to look really good, but that Newbie is the only team that he actually fears from that region. So that's sort of my thinking, that Newbie is the best team in that region going into the major, and LGD is the second best. And for me, that looked pretty much like probably low top 8.
I think if you look at LGD, if you looked at their early performances, you could say that a team, like if you disregard the names, if you just looked at performances, you say this team is never going to get anywhere because they played atrocious at the beginning. But just because of the names and just because they've been playing very consistently, actually, imagine if you took Team Secret and put them in every single qualifier right now. You would see a development, and they are developing. Even if they're playing against seemingly tier 2, tier 3 teams right now, and they are, some of these teams, like, again, Brave. I like shitting on Braveheart because it's a funny name.
It
But
really is a weird name. Yeah.
They're
LGD,
actually towards the top of the DPL Season 1 that's being played right now. That's one of the tournaments that isn't really getting any coverage in terms of Western streams and such. But they're like, I want to say they're like 5-0 or something like that.
LGD is definitely putting in the work, and I think this is something that you need to be scared of if you're like a competitor in Manila right now. Because the promise was always going to be there. Even if they hadn't played all these qualifiers, there's always going to be the scare of, oh, you know what, Director 8, they have maybe the superstar really, or like the Sumail of China basically. So there was always going to be the scare, like, all right, they might show up, they're going to show up. If it's not Manila, it's going to be TI. But just because they're already putting in the work, I think you have to count on LGD to, again, if they're not going to perform here, if they're only going to place like top 10 maybe, it's still going to be a monster team for TI, I think. So I think both Johan and I are pretty safe in putting them towards the lower end of the top 10, just because, as we said earlier, they started out just incredibly rocky.
Yeah, I think that one of the scary things about teams in this Manila Major, as we've seen even in Epicenter, is that an unknown quantity is like the scariest thing in this tournament, because with every team getting stronger, you prepare strategies and you prepare and you study for every single team. So when a team comes out of left field that you know nothing about or haven't had a lot of time to study, or you don't know what to expect from them, that's when things get scary. Lee,
Like
you're not convinced though, because you've got them.
No.
You got them off of your top 10. Tell me about that.
Yet again, I put another team that everybody thinks is good off the list, and that's my thing, I guess. Lately, I've just been like you just said, actually, you bring up an amazing point, and I think that moving forward, we're probably going to see a lot of the teams that we've put at the top of our list actually not doing as well as we expect, because as we look at Wings and Newbie, Wings had the entire Epicenter tournament to watch, newbie and how they're playing now, and they probably developed an anti-newbie strat. So all these teams can literally sit in the back and like we're saying, go against these brave hearts and like other tier 2, tier 3 teams, which I also don't like saying. Let's just call them like what Gorgon the Wonder Cow called them. What is it, like interregional and regional teams?
Oh,
like
yeah,
if you're in that region, because I mean tier 1 and tier 2. Navi used to be a tier 1 team. Now who are they? Like what do they do exactly?
They're doing okay.
They're doing okay, which is amazing. No, don't say they're back because they never left. They just kind of
well memed, my friends. We got to keep trucking forward. Next on our list, coming in at number 8, is a North American side that has made some waves lately. It is, of course, Complexity. Complexity, a squad that's been developing for a very long time, had the same roster for quite some time, starting to develop their chemistry, has still had some ups and downs within there, but between the strategizing of Swindles, the support of the team, the leadership of Beef, and then, of course, the strength of Chessie and Limp, this is a squad that can be very dangerous on any given day. Skim, kick it off. What do you see in Complexity? Because you didn't put them, I'm sorry, Suntzu actually didn't put them in his top 10. Johan, tell us why you don't believe in Cole.
It's because he doesn't like America.
That must be it.
I sort of like Complexity, but I think that they aren't looking their strongest right now. They sort of like a very heavy team fight style, and I don't know how well that's matching up against some of the, like, there's a lot of these very tanky, durable lineups, and if you're going to run team fight ultimates into that doesn't really work out. It's sort of the counter to team fight ultimates and stuff like that. I haven't seen how Complexity is gonna like adapt to that really. So I don't know. For me, they have like some upside potential. Like if everything goes right, they can make like top 6. But I think they're probably, for now, I have them outside the top 10. Yeah.
Certainly a squad that's capable of great things, but whether or not they show up, yet another one of our members of the lower side of the rankings. That it's a matter of who's going to show up. Skim, you put them at number 7. I did the same, and Lee actually put them at number 6, and that's fairly consistent outside of Sun Tzu's rating. Talk to us about why you put Complexity, where you did, and how do you respond to Sun Tzu's comments that maybe they aren't the strongest that they've been for right now?
I actually really agree with that. I think if Complexity had been, if we take the Shanghai Complexity and improve them, then I think we actually look at another top 6, maybe even potential top 5 finish or something. But I actually think that they sort of, I wouldn't say slacked or anything. I just think that they aren't as strong as they showed us during Shanghai. I think they've been trying to find themselves, especially in this new patch. I'm just never really convinced by their drafts as much as I am with other teams, and I just don't think that this is the Complexity that we've seen in Shanghai. But I think, and this is why I put them in like what was it, 7th, 6th?
Yeah, they were 8th.
All right, yeah.
You put them at 7, yeah.
Okay. The reason I put them there is because I think they're one of those teams that can, I talked about how MVP and even Wings to a degree are very momentum kind of teams. I think that while Complexity is also a momentum team, I think they, as crazy as it sounds, but I think they're like a team that can like create their own momentum. Basically, they do a lot over just mentality and being a really good team. Like I think the word team chemistry doesn't apply to any team as much as it does to Complexity because they thrive off of it. So I think when it comes to like a knockout, like when it comes to like an elimination match or whatever, I think they're the kind of team that I'd be really scared to go up against, just because even if you do have maybe a superior draft against them, they're just the kind of team that can just always, it's just going to be a nail biter. Like 100 minutes in, they're still going to pull some crazy shit. They're still going to go for that one team fight because they know that they can do it. So I don't know. I think there's always an upside potential with them.
And they certainly made things scary for EG at Epicenter, finally getting the monkey off their back and getting that win. Got to keep trucking forward. Next up on our rankings is number 7, Fnatic. Fnatic, we've got a range of ratings for these guys. We've got Suntzu, you put them all the way up at number 5. Skim, you put them down at number 9. I sort of averaged you guys out and went for number 6. Lee doesn't believe in them at all. We are all over the place, guys. Help me break down this Fnatic lineup and this enigma of Fnatic that came seemingly out of nowhere.
Well, to start out, I think they did really good at Shanghai. Since 343 sort of joined in, and they've had better coaching, and they've had like more direction to their gameplay. They've started to look like the team that sort of the lineup had promised at earlier points, but then had failed to deliver on. When they were playing without Mushi, they looked quite strong, and I think Mushi is an upgrade. Now, people are going to go, oh, but at Epicenter they failed to make it out of the wild cards. Mushi was taking it really hard, all the negative feedback that he was getting about how they kicked Net from the team, or how Net was ousted. And the word was that he was really struggling with that. Since Epicenter, they've played, I think, 4 series. They won 3 of them 2-0 and 1 2-1. So they've got a good track record after Epicenter, and I think they are sort of, I said this quite a while ago already, that I consider them my favorite for sustained success out of the SEA teams. And as I was looking at I was thinking MVP is like towards the bottom of the top 8, and that means I want to put Fnatic one step ahead of them, so top 6.
All right, I want to actually say something about that, because Fnatic is one of those teams that, like, I didn't even put them on my list, and the main reason is because, like, I don't see enough, like, consecutive wins, like something like they win on a Sunday and then they win the next Monday. It's like they'll win on that Sunday and then they'll go a whole week losing and then they'll all of a sudden win again. It's like we don't see consistency with them. And I, like I said with MVP, like I feel like I lump MVP and Fnatic in that same loop, because not only are they seeing like game inconsistency, but they're also seeing like roster changes. Like every roster swap of the past like 6 months, we see somebody on Fnatic either lose or get shifted somewhere around. It's very strange. I don't know. I feel like Fnatic is probably the most tumultuous team.
And I think perhaps Skim agrees with you. Skim, you put them all the way down at number 9 on your list. Talk to us about that choice.
Well, I put them down there, but for a different reason. And just to quickly address that, I actually think they had quite an impressive win streak at some point. Not in terms of games, but in terms of matches. And that wasn't too long ago. I think it was like just before Epicenter. They had like a really good win percentage, whatever. Either way, I put them down there because, in general, I agree with Suntzu that I think that they're the strongest team in Southeast Asia, probably. But at the same time, I think that, and this is probably just history repeating itself, because there's a few factors I think that it's going to make it really difficult for the team to function. Or I imagine, at least, I haven't talked to the team at all. I haven't talked to the manager, or whatever. So take whatever I'm saying with a grain of salt. But we've seen this before. The whole, oh, you know what? Now we have basically 2 captains in, right? 343 was the draft that was the sort of captain when Mushi was stepping out. Obviously, Mushi still was with the team in sort of a coaching functionality, and they obviously also have like a full-time coach anyway, or analyst, whatever. But I just see the old Pikehead problem, I guess. The whole, well, now we have 2 capable leaders. One has to step it down a little bit, and one has to give room for the other one to have his ideas, and you don't want too many cooks at the same pot, right? And I don't know, in a tight spot when it comes down to the last game, who they're going to listen to, I'm pretty sure they're going to go back to like, all right, Mushi, just do your thing. And this is my opinion how teams falter.
I disagree. I think Mushi largely has led because he had to lead not because he's actually a good fit to lead the team. And the fact that they now have 343 in game, being able to lead them, I think that they're very much going to rely on him. In terms of like Mushi, he continuously struggled when he had to lead the team in terms of getting his own performance right. So that's actually one of the big selling points of having 343 on the lineup for me, that we can actually expect Mushi to put in more of the old style of Mushi performance than when he was trying to lead the team.
Now we had a brief question from chat, which was, do you like this Mushi-led version of Fnatic better than the net version? What do they, I mean, overall, break it down for us. What did they lose by losing net from the roster?
I think Net was a very good support player, but I don't think he's that much better than 343. Meanwhile, I think 343 brings a lot more in terms of leadership. As a carry, Net was just not that good.
It was just a carry.
Yeah. I mean, it was basically that with Net as carry, they were finding success despite of his performance. And with Mushi instead, like Mushi traditionally has this whole problem where he used to overfarm and he doesn't know how to effectively use his gold. But he's a mechanically better player, and his farming mechanics are better, and his decision making when he's going aggressive is better. So I prefer Mushi.
Well, there you
and
go.
they're just incredibly versatile with Mushi as well, obviously.
Yep.
Because Mushi plays everything, and if they wanted to, they could even rotate him to mid in some scenarios, for example. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Mushi's just Mushi.
He like, this is one of those things that people always talk about, like, Mushi plays every hero. The reason he can play every hero is because he's just a good laner. And if you know how to lane a hero, then you can sort of fake it through the laning stages, and then you get strong enough, and then you have a favorable matchup, and you just sort of ride the fact that your hero is really, really good in this position. So he doesn't have to master every hero he plays.
Yeah, and certainly there's something to be said about versatility when you're going up against a number of different opponents. Being able to tailor your strategy to deal with the right team or pick the right hero in the right situation goes a long way. I want to talk about Vici Gaming Reborn, who is next on our list. Coming in at number 6, we saw Vici Gaming Reborn take the title over Na'Vi at Starladder I-League Final. It was quite a showing, and showed quite a bit of potency from this roster, especially at a time when we thought that maybe China was sort of out of the running, as it were, which is silly, of course, because they're never really out of the running. Talk to me about, just very quickly, about this VG Gaming Reborn team. What should we expect from them when we head to the Philippines? I'm sorry, Malaysia. I'm sorry, Malaysia.
No,
I apologize.
Philippines was correct.
Was it?
Yeah, it's actually
Manila in the Philippines?
Philippines was Manila's the capital. Yeah, capital.
Relax, Jack.
Ladies and gentlemen. That's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you so much, folks.
Anyway, the show.
Break it down for me.
I have mixed up Singapore with Malaysia before. Trust me, that's worse.
That's okay. Yeah.
So,
There you go. All right. Anyway, really quickly, let's move away from my gaff and to break down VG Gaming Reborn for me, just very quickly.
If it hadn't been for Newbie, this would probably be the strongest team in China, in my opinion. And just, I don't know, I think they sort of developed as expected. Maybe people expected a little bit more out of them just because of FY, but I think the team is just developing just fine. They're not by any means the kind of like, they're obviously not earning as much splash as Newbie is, for example, because they didn't have like that crazy record or anything, but I think they're just really solid. I know that some think that, you know, you could ideally even swap out a few players and make them even stronger. Sure, you can, but I think they're working fine as a team. I think they have one of the best coaches in the game in Mikasa, and I don't know, I think going into the Manila Major, that's, I guess, my biggest question is how are they going to perform on the big international LAN? Yeah, sure, they won Starladder, but obviously the stage is going to be completely different than Starladder just because of its magnitude. So I think that's just going to be the biggest challenge for them, and obviously also playing with Nono. For all we know, Nono is going to have like some really big stage fright, like Mind Control had at his first LAN event, right? So we don't know, but odds are they're going to be playing for top 3, maybe even. You can't really tell right now just because, again, they need to play against that international competition some more.
Yeah, and it's been so long since the Starladder I-League final. It's hard to say what's happened to this team in those ensuing months. Suntzu, break it down because according to our rankings, you had them at number 9. You're not quite a believer in this squad.
Yeah. Basically, they're playing really greedy right now. They sort of from their start they've had this problem where Nono, the way he was playing on CDC Avenger, he was basically the primary star of that lineup, and the whole lineup was built around facilitating him, similar to when Maybe was on CDC back in the day, and they basically just built the whole game around Maybe back then. Mm-hmm. So he sort of plays the similar style, and he plays very similar heroes as well as Maybe used to play back then. Like Ember Spirit is one of his hallmarks. And so they've had trouble from the very start in fitting him into a lineup where you have Ziff, or End as he's called right now because goddamn, screw that guy. Yeah, they have Ziff on this lineup, and Ziff should be their primary focus. He is the best player. Well, I mean, yeah, him and FY are the best players on this team. So Ziff should be the primary focus, but they can't dedicate enough resources to boost him up. So they sort of got this struggle, and then they've sort of started to. I've seen them running a bit more like offensive dual lanes, or these kinds of lanes to sort of give Yang a bit more space as well, and all this just takes away from so they're not focused on getting Ziff strong or stuff like that, and that sort of hampers them. And then they also have the problem where DDC has played, at least during their start, haven't actually checked up on this recently, but during their start he played a very small hero pool for them.
See, I generally agree with what you said, but at the same time, I don't think that Ziff, and whatever you want to call him, is the kind of player that you necessarily need to dedicate your resources to. I think he's actually a really incredibly strong laner that is just very capable of doing like either 1v1 matchups, or I've even seen him do like really well or at least considerably well in 1v2 matchups.
Here's the thing though. Would you agree that he's basically a younger version of Hao?
I agree to that. I agree
and would you leave Hao without resources?
Actually, yeah, because I know that Hao can get it by himself anyway.
That's true. That's a good point.
How Newbie plays, though. They
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, obviously some conflicting viewpoints on VGR, but obviously a lot to look forward to at Manila as we see what has become of this team. And I'm just going to go so far as to say, in Mikasa we trust. The next one on our ranking, and I'm going to raise some serious holy hell about this one. You people put Team Secret at number 5. Now, I know that there are probably viewers at home who are very excited to hear this news, and I know that there's probably a lot of European fans who are very excited to hear that the Team Secret is number 5 on the rankings, but I have to put it before you that this team has gone to 2 consecutive tournaments and bombed out so quickly you forgot they were in attendance. And that's nothing against them personally, that's nothing like that, but convince me, sell me on this Secret lineup, because as far as I'm concerned and as far as I've seen in these tournaments, they're just not there yet.
All right, guys, I got this.
Lee's going to try to preach the gospel. Go ahead.
So, long story short, Ian didn't put them on the list anywhere.
I didn't. I don't. They're not a
He's
top 10
salty.
team right. No, they're not a top 10 team right now.
Okay,
Okay,
not even invited.
there are top 10.
They're not
okay,
a top
so
10 team.
let me explain this to Ian
If
and
they're-
everybody that thinks that
Good.
Secret should not be on the top 10 list.
Okay.
Long story short, Secret has the roster that if they finally find their footing, they will be unstoppable. They have the roster, so
And
they have
yet-
the pedigree.
and
It's like
yet-
I
There's no
know,
footing to be found.
I know. They're failing so hard, like Stephon Curry when he's got like the entire team on him. But they have the opportunity to. If they come at the Manila Major the way they came at every other tournament and failed, but don't fail,
I'm sorry.
they will win.
Are we doing power rankings here, or are you giving me stock advice? Because I don't give a shit about it. I'll take
you
the
can't
potential
do that.
all the way to the bank. I get that. There's absolutely no reason for this roster to be doing what they're doing, but the fact that
Exactly,
they're
yeah.
doing it is what concerns me. Skim, Johan, you have the floor. Make a believer out of me.
Let me just quickly quote a friend of ours. Shout out to Scant. He made that point, and I would have made it as well, but he basically said that, and I agree with it, that they looked, in terms of performance, not results. Obviously, their results right now are just shit, but in terms of raw performance, I think they actually did worse before Shanghai. Because I think that while their performances weren't great and their results are obviously shit on a perspective for Manila, I think their performances are more promising now than they were prior to Shanghai. Prior to Shanghai, I wouldn't say for sure.
They were looking in so much trouble before Shanghai.
Yes, in so much trouble. I think they're in much better shape now. I mean, obviously still bad, for sure.
I don't know if they look good right now, but I know a couple of things. Like, for example, I might have hinted that some teams might have had a bit of trouble with food poisoning at ESL 1 Manila. I'm not going to say that Secret was one of them, but, maybe.
Makes sense, at least.
I'm also going to say that Secret is one of the teams that have been most public about the fact that they don't actually care about anything outside of the majors and TI. Like, those are the events that they really focus on. And so even though they would have preferred to do better at Epicenter, it doesn't faze them. And they have a huge upside potential. I don't think that they don't look likely to go for a top 3 run, but that's still in the cards for them. We can't tell right now.
I know bullshit when I hear it.
Oh my god!
And the line about we don't care about those tournaments. You know how many times I've used that to say, I mean, maybe that's the way they feel. Maybe they literally don't care about finishing literally dead last at 2 consecutive tournaments with the roster that they do. But I would argue that they might want to start caring. Moving on to our next team. This was one that I can get on board. I get you guys did your best. I understand there's a lot of upside potential. We'll see what Team Secret comes out, especially at the upcoming major, if they prepare like they actually care about a tournament. But in the meantime, I'm just not convinced. Coming in at number 4, Evil Geniuses. I think that it's really interesting the way our rankings panned out, because we'll have the average at the end, but there were literally 0.2 points separating first and second. 0.3 between second and third, so the top 3 is very close, and then there were 2.2 points separating third and fourth being EG, and then there were teams well below EG in our rankings. Talk to me about this roster, because it does seem weirdly appropriate that they are the consensus 4th place team in the world right now.
EG has a workable roster. I think that I like 4 out of 5 players on that roster right now. I'm not sold on Aui's style of playing carry in this metagame. I think if we were in a more late game focused and more greedy metagame, I'd be a lot more on board with how he plays the carry position. But that's not where we are. So unless they can sort of make the games go longer and make the games more about the macro level and the economy and sort of stuff like that, then they can get the full power out of Aoi. And if that happens, then they've got a real chance at like getting really far. I'm also going to say that at Epicenter, they were disappointing, but they were disappointing because they didn't understand the game.
Yeah.
And I may or may not have talked to someone on the team, and basically I know that they didn't understand what was going on really.
Suntzu, I'm never really sure.
He may or may not.
I'm not really sure what you do or don't do anymore. I mean,
it's like the government over here. It's like we may or may not.
I can neither confirm nor deny. And I'll back up what you said. Yeah, I'll back up what you said. The team certainly looked like they had an idea in mind for drafts, and it was very clear that those drafts were not did not groove with what the way the meta is currently set up. And then of course there were some tweaks to heroes after that maybe helped open up their hero pool a little bit, but they're still obviously doing some work there. Skim, how about you? This EG roster has shown potential, that deadly scary word, and arguably sometimes they have looked the part of a great team, and yet they still keep coming up short. Why are they number 4 and why aren't they in the top 3 yet?
I think they're not in the top 3 yet just because the other teams that are already in the top 3 already understood the metagame, so they have a huge advantage. They've already understood the metagame and also to some degree already mastered it. Like, obviously you can never really master the meta because the meta is ever changing, but they've been just very consistent so far. They haven't really shown like a really lack of focus or anything, and I don't know, I just think that the top 3 are just so incredibly strong that EG would need to suddenly have I mean, we always know that EG is going to come into the meta at some point. Like, they've done it before. They've always found a way to make this game their own to some degree, but I just think that's too far off right now to make them top 3 just because these other teams are so incredibly strong. And if it wasn't for these 3 strong teams, EG's easy top 3 contender at every event. But no, we're just in a really good place right now in Dota where we have 3 really strong teams that are neither EG nor Secret.
Yeah, based on their drafts at Epicenter, it certainly looked like they've got some work to do, and hopefully for EG fans, they've been in the lab. Now, yeah, I'm among EG fans, but I'm also frustrated with the way that this team is playing right now, so I will openly admit that. Moving on to number 3, we've got 3, 2, and 1 left, and the hilarious thing about this lineup, let's kick it off with number 3, Newbie, just for formal reasons, apparently, because if people at home could see our spreadsheet, they would see that every one of the top 3 teams comes in some version. We've got 2-1-3, 3-2-1, 1-3-2, and 1-2-3. I think we may have actually covered every permutation of ranking these different teams. Like you said, Skim, these 3 teams are so close that it's honestly hard to call. Skim, tell us why you put Newbie at number 1.
Wait, did I?
You did?
Yeah, I did. See, I think that just goes to show how really difficult it is to straight up say who's number 1. Because if you ask me tomorrow, I might even come up with a different top 3, and the day after that as well. No, but I think I put Newbie 1 right now just because I think that there's the RPG jokes, right? But I think this team is really hungry. Actually, I think this team is really hungry for success. Maybe hungrier than they've ever been, just because there are these players like Kaka is probably the best support, maybe one of the best supports in the world right now. Just because, I mean, he's incredibly talented. He unfortunately wasn't able to really get anything out of eHome. Then there's Chuan, obviously, even though he won TI2, ever since then he's been really just, I wouldn't say falling behind, but he's just never been that successful ever again. And I think all of these players, KP Phoenix, well, KP. I was just wondering if it was KP Phoenix, whatever. KP, he's also just a really young talent, right?
Or something.
Yeah, exactly. I believe it was KP Phoenix at the point. Anyway, he's just a really young player as well, and he's just been, I don't know, he just wants success in the scene right now, right? He's been sitting in the shadows of the Chinese scene, like he's been playing with eHome K, which is definitely tier 3 in China, maybe even worse than that. So I think that this team is really hungry, that they've been playing incredible Dota right now. Suntzu has pointed out some flaws in that team, and I definitely think they're there, but I think on a good day, this team can beat anybody. And I think if the final, if you replay that finals maybe a day later, odds are Newbie just takes it again. At Epicenter, I mean. So
Yep.
I think that Newbie is in a really good place right now. But again, as we already pointed out, this is a toss-up, really. Like, on a given day, this could be OG or Liquid's title.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you that KP is really the shot in the arm for this team. Chuan, obviously a great leader and sort of a visionary drafter. Hao and Mu also quite strong, but for me, KP has been the guy that's really stepped in and made been the X factor for this team, as we've seen happen to so many teams that rise to prominence. Suddenly, somebody comes out of nowhere and makes a huge difference, and KP's that guy. Now, Suntzu, you put Newbie at number 3. Obviously, I'm not going to put you on blast for putting them at number 3, considering how close these teams are. But tell me, you're not sold on what they showed you before. You think that Liquid and OG are gonna overtake them?
Well, to start out with, they basically have they have 2 4-position supports, and if you look at how they play with their supports. The old version of Newbie, when they had Chuan and Lei as the supports, they really liked roaming together. The new version doesn't really do that. I've seen a couple of times when they've actually done some early game ganking after Epicenter, but like between the Manila Major qualifiers and up to Epicenter, you basically didn't see them enter the opposing side of the map during the first 7 to 9 minutes of the game at all. They strictly counter ganked. That was all that they did, and that's still the core of what they're doing. They haven't updated their game plan. They had a smoking routine which basically started at about 7 minutes in general. 7 to 11 minutes, that was like the period, and after that they'd smoke every 1 to 2 minutes. It would be led by Chuan, and they would prioritize targeting mid, and that whole pattern of smoking during Epicenter, Gods said that that Newbie has been very effective in these smokings with their smokes. And I agree, and they had a very, just because they kept up the pressure and the pacing of the smokes and so forth, it was really effective for them, especially during the Manila Major qualifiers. But progressively, when they were playing at Epicenter, teams had sort of started to figure that out, and so they started actually having to either delay their smokes, or they were playing too reactive to keep doing these smokes. Then we also saw them sort of exposed when, and this was actually shown by Alliance, OG, and Liquid. And since then, Wings has done this to them as well. If you just get in their face early, they sort of their whole idea of just counter ganking and TPing in to protect their lanes from ganks, it doesn't really work, because you just you put so much pressure out, and they're constantly having to react to you, and they just sort of slip behind. But yeah, they're still a good team. Hao is a great player. So
here are all the things that they do wrong.
Whereas, like, wow.
This, that, the other thing, but they're still good. No, yeah, and it makes sense.
Yes, they're still okay.
And it makes sense, because if you could sort of set your watch to a team's smoke ganks, that's a level of predictability that's not going to make it at the top level. If you're forcing a team to, if you could predictably make them rotate and burn that TP, I mean, they cost less now, so at least you're wasting less money on them.
Yeah.
But obviously, moving yourself to the top side of the map and opening holes in your defense, not a great situation. Now, coming in at second in our power rankings and averaging out to a perfect 2, which I love. I love that quite dearly. Is OG, a team that has really come alive. They sort of fell off after the Frankfurt Major, but they stuck together through the roster changes. And Miracle lately has just shown his true colors as just a world-class carry, putting on incredible shows on Timbersaw, as you can see on your screen right now. But obviously, this team is more than just Miracle, and that's what makes them scary. Suntzu, you put them at number 1. Lee, you put them at number 2. Lee, why don't you kick us off and tell me why you're a believer in this OG squad?
I'm a huge Miracle fan. Also want to note that was not Miracle on the Timber song on that clip, everybody. I already know Twitch chat's going to say something. I just want to say we know. Don't kill us.
No, that's Miracle.
No. On that one, earlier, it was a Doom, because... We'll talk about it.
Okay, anyway.
Sorry. But no, OG is an amazing team. I love them. They're great. They show up when they need to. After the Frankfurt Major, they kind of disappeared for a little bit, as you said. But now they seem to be really present. They seem to, they've taken some time. They've learned it. Hitbox is throwing some money at them. It's all great. And it seems like OG is really, they have their eyes set on Manila. And I think that the only thing in their way right now is either Newbie or Liquid. And those two teams, amazing. As we all know, and as we will be talking about
when you're good enough that you need amazing teams to stop you, obviously a lot to be said.
Exactly.
Suntzu, give us your encyclopedic knowledge of OG, because you actually put them at number 1 right now.
Yeah, so basically after Frankfurt, they did this whole tour where they literally went to 4 different lands in 4 weeks or something like that. And they came out of that being really tired, they were completely burnt out, and that's the big reason why you didn't see them at many events leading up to Shanghai, and that also translated to them not being prepared for Shanghai. They were just not in the zone for that. They've been ramping up their work again post Shanghai, because they sort of realized that they can't just coast to results. They have to actually work at it. We started seeing that come into fruition with Epicenter. They beat Newbie once. I think they could have taken the second series as well, but some mistakes were made. I think they're sort of moving in the right direction. The meta is moving in a direction that they can work with. There are certain new strategies that are coming up that I think are going to be interesting to see once they get a hold of them, and sort of because OG tends to be a really good fighting team, and that works out well against Newbie, because Newbie also is a good mid-game fighting team. So if you can out-execute them in fights, that should be a good strength. Their general problem has always, or almost always, going back before the Frankfurt Major, the patch that came in at the start of the Frankfurt Major cycle. Ever since then, they've sort of had this rivalry with Liquid, and Liquid has had the favorable position to them. But the thing is, Liquid's really exposed because of their win at Epicenter, and I don't know if they have enough time or enough depth to pivot into a new direction and sort of find something new. While I do know that OG has a really strong track record of learning throughout an event, and they are the best learning team of these top 3, and that's why I'm banking on them.
Yeah, and for those of you familiar with the scene, the real core of this squad, obviously No Tail, Fly, and Moon. These are all guys that have been hungry for success for a long time. Fly and No Tail, part of that Fnatic squad that looked so promising back when they had Era, and I forget the rest of the lineup. My apologies, folks.
It was an amazing lineup.
And
Era, Honey, Trixie.
There we go.
Oh
Thank you.
God.
Honey and Trixie. I remember that lineup.
The boy band.
Oh my God.
They did some damage back in the day, but of course, you swap out No Tail into the carry role, and then you also stick Miracle in there, and there's a lot to talk about this roster. Skim, give us your reasons for putting them in your top 3. You put them in number 2. I would actually agree with that sentiment, but talk to me about your decision.
So first of all, I think that if you asked anybody about the strength of OG, I think Suntzu is probably one of the better guys to talk about it. And I think he was spot on. This team is quite scary. If you give them enough time in the tournament, they can just become real monsters. I just put them in number 2 because I think if it comes to a coin flip between them and Newbie, I think just Newbie has that quantum of I don't know, desire more. It's kind of crazy to actually call that, because OG is also such a very emotional and a very
young.
As you said, they're really hungry, obviously, right? They're young, they're hungry, they just don't, they have like, they really that don't care attitude to some degree. We're like, all right, let's just do this. Let's just go out and like play some Dota, basically. But I think there's just, I don't know, I think on a good day, Newbie is just going to take it. But overall, I think this is also one of the scariest teams to meet in a tournament just because when they turn up, and it's really scary.
Yeah, I think that in the past we've seen them sort of struggle with an overall strategic outlook on their game plan, but I don't think there's a team in the world right now that skirmishes better than OG. They're just able to cut you in half and then just take out one target at a time.
Chaos.
And really just live in the chaos. Really just turn any situation into a favorable situation for them, provided you give them the time and the tools. Now, of course, there has to be a number one. Big thanks to everybody on the panel for contributing all of your picks. We had some other people that were mentioned. I don't want to talk about them at length, but we also had Alliance, Digital Chaos, Virtus Pro, and Na'Vi making it onto a couple lists. They sadly will be in the also receiving votes category, but there's certainly some good names to talk about another time on there. Now, our number one team, and a team that I don't think will surprise anybody, is of course Team Liquid, the recent winners of the Epicenter LAN, beating out Newbie, a squad that looks nigh unstoppable on the way in, and really just dismantling teams in the process, really just turned that series around against Newbie when they discovered how to play against them. Here we see them really taking care of business against Evil Geniuses, a team that once again walked into this matchup probably feeling pretty confident after their play against Virtus Pro, a team that had been doing well, but Team Liquid just made it look like a non-issue because that's what this team is capable of. Skim, kick us off. You had them at number 3, Suntzu, you had them at number 2, and me and Lee very smartly put them at number 1.
Because we're smart.
I would say. So instead of talking about where you put them, tell me, what is it that makes this Liquid team so threatening?
I think that they just have really strong individual players. I think that Matu is probably one of the top carries in the world right now. I think that he's incredibly strong. They have 2 of the strongest supports, in my opinion. Like, Jerix is incredibly strong. Like, he makes so much happen for his team. He himself is worth a hero ban, and at some point is probably going to, like, you cannot give him Earth Spirit. You just cannot. If you do, you're just going to run the risk of getting memed because he's the Earth Spirit god. But even outside of Earth Spirit, he's an incredibly good player. He reads the map really well. He reads the state of the game incredibly well. He's very responsive. And I don't know, to me, it's just a very well-rounded team. I think that even if you were to look at the weakest link, say Mind Control, he's still a really good offlaner. There was a time where you could say that Mind Control, he's just like really comfortable in like 1, 2, 3. No, he's good on a lot of offlaners right now, and I think this team, Kuroki, in my opinion, has stepped up his drafting a lot. I think the drafts during the grand finals were definitely on point, and while we talk about this team a lot, I think the supporting cast in their coach is very important. They had Heen as a coach, and I think it showed during Epicenter, the fact that they had a coach. I think it's very important for this team to have a supporting cast outside of things, because I think that's part of the reason why they also crumbled here and there. Obviously, they also had coaches at Shanghai, but I still think that they need that kind of support outside to keep them going, and I think having Blitz on top of that as well for Manila is just going to make them even stronger. That said, I do think that just because they were number 1 just now, they're going to have a huge target on their back, and it's going to be incredibly difficult for them to keep this up.
Suntzu, your thoughts to sort of close out our power rankings?
I agree with pretty much everything Skim said.
All right, folks, that'll do it.
I think Fada he's not quite at sort of his best level right now. So if they could get Fada to play up to his very best level, that would make them incredibly strong. I also think that they need a bit more depth. They need a couple more heroes in their pool, just so that they have a few more strategies that they can pivot into. Right now, I think a lot of what they're doing is going to be very familiar to especially the best teams that are coming up against them, and that's why I think that they're going to have a really, really hard time trying to win this event. But but they're still like, the fact that they actually have now a big LAN win under their belts, that's a huge monkey off their back, and there is the potential there. The question is, like, how much can they get out of these couple weeks that they have before the Manila Major? Like, this is not quantity of practice. This is like, what kind of quality can you get out of here?
Just to add on that, I think Suntzu, you actually said it before already, like how much are they able to shake up like what they've been doing, because what they showed at Epicenter is not necessarily something completely new. I think they've been, ever since they formed as 5 Jungs, whatever.
Yeah, it's been very much the same.
It's been pretty much the same thing throughout any patch whatsoever. They've just been doing the same thing over and over. They've just been working and perfecting what they've been doing, and I think at Epicenter you can see that they've finally been able to do it incredibly well. But just because of that, like Suntzu said, I think it's going to be not easy, but I think people are very keen and very likely to figure out how to deal with that, because, well, they're the winners, they're the top favorites, so you got to prepare for them, right? So
it's certainly the winner's curse that as soon as you put that title on your mantle, you definitely put a giant target on your back. And
what do you think about them, actually?
What do I think about Liquid? Liquid is a team that executes extremely well and executes from extremely solid strategic base. Their drafts are quintessentially solid. I feel like having fought on these sort of armlet carries in the middle is sort of hindering them, and I think that the fact that he's sort of defaulted to the Dragon Knights and the Alchemists and stuff like that, and the fact that sort of limits Liquid's draft and they're still winning is proof of how strong this team is. I also think that mind control in the offlane, I think that the only thing that limited mind control besides maybe his mentality was the fact that the last meta in patch 6.86 was very limiting, in fact, for offlane heroes, and now that he's able to do a little bit more from the offlane and get pick something that's a little bit more versatile, this team becomes less one-dimensional. And I know you guys are talking about how they do the same thing over and over again, but I think that what they do best is not a particular strat, but their execution within that strat. The synergy is there. The team just automatically, almost unspoken, knows what each member is going to do, and like you said, they've been working together for so long, this roster, that synergy is really what wins out, especially when the moment comes down to a pressure situation. So I picked them for number 1. I think no matter who you pick on this list in this top 3, it's going to be an extremely exciting major. By no means are rankings things that you should base Arcana on before I get any angry emails, but certainly a lot to talk about ahead of the major. Guys, thank you so much for contributing your picks and for contributing your insight. Any shout outs or anything before we close up shop for the night?
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'll just say a couple words that, the putting together this ranking, it's very much in the moment and what we know right now, and the fact that we have EG and Secret as these 2 big wild cards, which have a huge known potential upside, and that they haven't shown it yet. That means that there's going to be a lot of things that we have to learn about how this is going to shake up. That's only going to happen at Manila. But this is sort of the picture of what it looks like going in, pretty much.
And I have to say, I think the more wrong these rankings are, the better tournament it will have been.
God, I hope so.
For sure.
I would love to see this just get completely flipped on its head and just have a great weekend.
It's a really strong top 3, and if Secret and EG come to challenge those 3 as well, then we'll have a very, very strong top 5-6 teams at least.
I think
Team Empire, guys.
Team Empire. I think
they're the dark horse.
They are the dark horse.
No, I think the parity in Dota is in an excellent place, especially with so many teams
becoming strong. I thought the dark horse was digital chaos.
Well, I mean, I think that we're like with these rankings. I feel like all of us kind of honed in on individual players, and if we could do a fantasy draft or whatever, we'd have all these amazing teams. But I feel like we downplay the amount of chemistry needed. Like when Secret literally puts their team together and they go go into a tournament, nobody expects them to win because it's a brand new it's a brand new team.
Yeah, certainly a lot to
Chemistry.
develop.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about that all day.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you so much for your insight, and thank you so much. I hope you folks enjoyed the power rankings, and please use them for whatever purposes you see fit.
Betting.
That's going to do it for us tonight, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. If you liked the show, check out the video over on youtube.com/daily.esports. Of course, we might be working on a podcast option that's been in high demand ever since we launched the show, and we'd love to put that out there for your hearing pleasure. If you want to check out more of our esports coverage over on Facebook and Twitter, and then of course hit that follow button down below the screen, and maybe even that subscribe button if you are feeling particularly generous. Folks, thank you so much for joining us. I've been Ian J. Barker. This has been the handsome Lee Malice Massey. Thank you so much for joining us, and for God's sake, play some damn Dota.